Today we're going to be going over the biggest mistakes that first-time tractor buyers are making. It's Jack from B&T MacFarlane, and today I'm very excited to be going over the biggest mistakes that first-time tractor buyers are making with their new purchases. Myself and the other salesmen here, we compiled a list of the biggest mistakes and some of the questions that their customers have for them a couple days after delivery of the tractor. So let's get into it. So the first biggest mistake that customers are making when they first get their tractor is they don't really know how to operate an HST pedal. So when you get a tractor, it's going to have a high, medium, and low range, and that's your primary gear selector. So that's going to move you from a high speed, which is when you're traveling down the road, you want to move a little bit quicker with your load or with some of your implements from point A to point B. Medium is usually a little bit better of a working range. It's when you're doing a little bit more general loader, maybe some backhoe work. But then low range, that's when you really need that low end power to do any kind of pulling or any kind of hauling of heavier equipment with your tractor. But another deeper dive into the transmission is that you have your hydrostatic pedal here. So it's not like a normal gear selector where you can go from gear 1 through 6. It actually acts as a gear selector in of itself. So if you push that pedal all out, you're actually not going to be in a very low range, even if your gear selector is in the low range. So a better way to use this HST pedal is to give it a little bit of gas forward, and then you're also in an even further lower range. So how an HST transmission works is it uses the flow of oil. So if you just completely stomp on that pedal and expect to have really good low end power to pull yourself out of a sticky situation, you're really not going to get that. What you'll need is to limit the flow of oil and kind of build up a bit of traction with the pedal and then continuously push it down until you get yourself unstuck. So that, far and large, is a lot of complaints or a lot of questions we hear from customers, and this goes all the way from tractors. Even some of our RTVs, like the diesel ones, they're HST driven as well. So we see a lot of people questioning about that, and that's just... So the next biggest mistake that people don't really know about, it's this hidden feature on a tractor. It's not really hidden until you actually need to use it. It's this knob right here underneath the seat. It's on pretty much every single tractor, right from a BX all the way up to an L or an M. So what it does, it actually limits the pressure that goes to your 3-point hitch. So what that means effectively is if you have a big heavy implement on the back of your 3-point hitch and you find that it's dropping like a rock every time you're moving your 3-point hitch lever down, what you'll do is you'll tighten up this knob a little bit, and it's going to make it so that the 3-point hitch drops a little bit slowly, limits the pressure to it, or the flow rate I should say, so that it drops a little bit slower. So if you have a lighter implement on the back of your tractor, then you'll loosen it up a little bit. So ideally you want all your implements to drop at a slow, controlled manner towards the ground. So that's just a quick little tip. That knob in between your legs, it actually adjusts your 3-point hitch. So another thing we get a lot of questions about is when should I be using my 4-wheel drive? So we usually recommend only using the 4-wheel drive when you absolutely need to. Just because if you're using your loader a lot, like this tractor here, it'll lift about 1,000 pounds. So if you have 1,000 pounds in your bucket, as well with your 4-wheel drive system on, that's really hard on all the bearings and the seals in your 4-wheel drive system in general. You know, we run into it a lot in our service shop where some people, they've been running in 4-wheel drive for 15, 20 years and they come in and they have to redo their entire front axle in their 4-wheel drive system. So we usually recommend only use 4-wheel drive when you absolutely need it. That's whenever you're starting to get stuck, or if you don't have any load on your front tires or you're doing any kind of snow blowing, then you're safe to do that as well. But if you're just running around your yard with loads of topsoil and loads of gravel, you probably don't need to be in 4-wheel drive. So another thing we get a lot of is a few days after the customer gets their tractor delivered, we'll get a phone call saying, my tractor won't start, what's going on? About 9 times out of 10, it's because your PTO is actually still engaged. So if you're out blowing snow with one of these BX tractors or any tractor and you happen to leave your PTO engaged, and then you just shut the tractor right off because you're wearing earmuffs or a hat or it's snowing, and you go to start your tractor the next day, right now the PTO is actually engaged, and you go to flip that switch, it's not going to turn on. So that's one thing to make sure is when you turn off the tractor, make sure you're turning off the PTO first. So another thing we hear a lot of too is the tractor bucket. They hear a lot about this float mode where the bucket and the loader will actually mimic the curvature of the ground and release the pressure, but they don't know how to get it into it. And when they'll use the loader stick here, they'll just push it straight into the ground and they'll pick the front tires up off the ground of their tractor. So to get into float mode, it's universal across all the loader types in Kubota. You just take the loader and you give it one shot forward, and when you're in here, it'll actually be locked into float mode, and that allows you to free flow the hydraulics and mimic the curvature of the ground. And to get it out, you just give it a shot back and it'll come right out. So this is one a lot of people don't really know too much about. It's a lot of these tractors, especially the BX, the B and the LX series tractor, it actually has a Mid PTO as well. And that allows you to run either a mower deck underneath the tractor as well as a front snowblower. But what a lot of people don't realize is when you have a backhoe on at the same time, you should really be disconnecting the hydraulics from your backhoe. And that's because when you run a PTO implement, it runs at a very high RPM with the transmission, and that transmission needs the hydraulic fluid in order to run it correctly. But if you have your backhoe hooked up as well, it's actually taking power away from your transmission and your hydraulic pump to run the hydraulics all the way through your backhoe, through all these lines and all these fittings. But thankfully you can leave your backhoe on through this operation. So if you look underneath the tractor here, there's 3 hoses. And there's a hose that's usually a little bit lower than these other 2, and it's actually the return line hose. So you're still able to disconnect your backhoe and then reconnect the return line hose from down there up into there. And those are easy to find too, because the hoses that stick with the backhoe generally have caps on them, and the hose that's meant to loop back into the tractor, it's not going to have a cap on it. So we're going to end it here on safety. These tractors, every single one of them comes with a roll bar, or if it has a cab, it's actually roll protected as well. So this roll bar, it will protect you in a rollover situation where if you flip for whatever reason, the roll bar is designed to support the entire weight of the tractor. With that being said, there's also seat belts on all these tractors. Make sure you wear your seat belt, because accidents on tractors, they happen very, very quick. You know, for example, this BX23S, it can lift about 700 pounds. That's a lot of weight for a tractor of this size, being as narrow as it is. So make sure when you're also carrying the front end load on your loader, carry it low to the ground and go as slow as possible to avoid rolling over. And in the event of a rollover, make sure that you turn off your engine immediately to prevent any damage to your engine. So that's all we have for you today. I hope you guys learned a thing or two. If you have anything else that you guys have run into, please leave it down below in the comments. And if you guys need any help with parts, service, or sales, give us a call at 613-225-0555. Thank you for watching.